Welcome, everyone, to the November 20th Lower Southampton Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Board of Supervisors held an executive session tonight at 6 o'clock where we discussed personnel and litigation. The Board of Supervisors also held a budget workshop which started at 6:50 tonight with a workshop immediately following. We had discussed the general fund, thanks to Mr. Ryan. We had Mrs. Mason from the library come in to speak about a share grant. Mr. Mulholland updated us on quotes for the HVAC at the Dolphin Building and also spoke about winter camps. Mr. Everett spoke about bids of the courts over at the Dolphin Park. And Mr. Coppins spoke about the speed bump that was installed on Hoover Avenue, and hopefully that will give us some positive feedback in the future, Mr. Coppins. At this time, I would like to open the floor. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. Right now, I would like to announce that Mr. Castle, Supervisor Castle, couldn't be here tonight due to family obligations, and Mr. Italia is Zooming in tonight. The next item is discussion about the general fund and ancillary budgets. Over the past month and a half, during our public workshops, we've been going through our budget cycle. We do this every year. The public workshops are obviously open to the public, but we also wanted to have a little bit of discussion during our televised meeting for people at home to also kind of hear what's going on budget-wise. At this time, I am going to call on our finance director, Mr. Ryan, to kind of give us a little bit of a history with the budgets, over the years, where we are at today. Mr. Ryan, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, it has been 16 budget cycles since there was a millage increase, and during that time, costs have continued to rise, especially recently. Over the past couple of years, we've been able to use ARPA funds, which is related to about $300,000 to $400,000 in smoothing, which has supported us over the past 3 years and has allowed us to avoid a tax increase. That will no longer be available past 2025. Since 2021, inflation has been up 19.5%, which has not only affected the township, but also the residents as well. The increase since the increase in inflation since the last millage has been a little over 40%. I'm here to propose in the preliminary budget for the upcoming year, I'm suggesting a 3 millage increase for next year. As a longtime resident of the township with friends and family still living in the area, this decision was not made lightly. Each millage point generates approximately $224,000. With the proposed 3 millage tax increase, the average increase for residents will be around $92 a household. The homeowner with the highest property assessment of $58,390 can expect an increase of about $175, while the lowest assessment, $10,800, will see an increase of just $32 for the year. In 2024, we began with a reserve fund balance of $3,966,630. We had estimated revenues of $21,348, and anticipated expenses for the year amount to $13,377,999, which is an increase of 2.3%, but is lower than the inflation rate for the year of 2.6%, leaving us with a remaining fund balance of $3,309,979.
All right. Mr. Gatto, anything you'd like to add?
Well, again, like Nick said, what Nick said is that, we went through 16 budget cycles. This would have been the 17th budget cycle without any type of increase. What we've seen in the past year for 2023, we ended the year in the negative, I believe a little bit around $150,000 off the top of my head. In this projected year, you may be around that $500,000, $600,000 being in the red. So you have 2 consecutive years with exposure. We have fund balance in the township. We've built that up over a myriad of years, and we still have healthy fund balance. That's unquestioned. The problem is that we're getting flatlined as far as revenue. So like real estate taxes, on average, we only take in about $3 million in real estate taxes, but yet we have a myriad of 19 different funds in the township. Our collectibles in a given year could be the range of $80,000 to $90,000 to a high of maybe $140,000 in a bad year. So there are years where we're not getting our collectibles, meaning real estate tax revenue coming in, and the properties are being liened at the county level. So that is, there's a little bit of shortage on that side, and that's actually impacting the township over the past couple years. Again, Nick mentioned the ARPA dollars. So the ARPA dollars were, federal dollars that came across various townships and counties, and everybody has, either you accepted those dollars in a one-shot deal, or people have smoothed it over a myriad of years. And basically, our township has decided to smooth it out over a myriad of years. We use those dollars to offset expenditures that were, let's say, overruns in a respective year through no fault of the township, but just based off of CBAs and natural expenses and inflation, like Nick said. And as a matter of fact, if you look over from the last time we had an increase in our millage, you're talking 2007, 2008, 40% in inflation, over 40%. Basically, in the last 4 years, Nick mentioned, I think it was 19.5% increase in inflation, yet us still holding the line all them years. So again, we have, there may be the request for a potential increase at the township level. We're making sure that as far as capital contributions, you got funds going to the 2 fire companies in Tri-Hampton Rescue as well. We got capital assets that are for the police department vehicles, public work vehicles, as well as machinery for public works. You got our CBA agreements, and that would be coming up in the very near future again. You got to stabilize staff levels right now. Again, they've been reduced for a little while since COVID, and that has assisted us in trying to mitigate financial exposure. But our residents are requesting certain service levels. If there were to be a potential increase on the millage side, that would help us maintain those service levels. As far as low debt structure, we have one of the lowest debt structures in the county, unequivocally, but that would also assist us in paying down debt structure if we were to go out and get a new bond in the future. There's a myriad of things as far as potential increase, assist us with transfers, just the normal operations for the fire, rescue, and library services, because we do transfers out of the 01 fund for various entities. On a temporary basis, if we were to have a millage increase, maybe a budget cycle or 2, we would assign a millage component to recreation to kind of knock down their debt balance, which is historic in nature, dating back to 2007 and 8. So that would help Walt in his department in reducing down that the numbers that we saw that were in the red. That would help him mitigate some of that exposure, so I could slice away some of that debt for Walt, which would be, I think, a positive attribute for the township. And that would be on a temporary basis, doing that for probably 2 budget cycles. And let me see. Another component is, we don't want to impact the residents where we have large increases in a respective year, nor do we want to have it where we have a multiple requests, whether it be the sewer, real estate, refuse, all going in 1 year. So we're trying to smooth it out for the residents. In this given year and budget cycle, for the sewer component, we're not asking for any type of increase on the sewer side, even though Philadelphia Water is going to be hitting us with an 8% increase hypothetically. And based off of water flows, if it rains, then we could have more expenses coming down the pipeline with Philadelphia Water. So we're willing to mitigate there. So that, this may be an opportunity to have a slight increase in the millage. I think the average resident, as far as real estate tax, is about $433. Even if you did 3 mills, that would bring that to about maybe $525 as a typical real estate tax for the township component. Again, we only represent 6% of the total real estate tax. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the request that.
Mr. Galdo, I hear what you're saying. I don't like what you're saying, but we do hear it. Before I finish up with any comments, do any of my members like to talk about this?
One thing. I think it's important that when you state that, there's been a 40% increase over the last 16 years, and the township has not needed to raise millage. I think it's important to note that's basically based on 2 components. Primary component is the earned income tax that was implemented. That is now running flat. There doesn't appear to be any more real growth in that. And the other component was new taxes, new real estate taxes from high-density developments. I know I personally am not in favor of any more high-density developments. While on paper, I think, it looked great. I think in reality, I think it's congested the township, and it's just not something I'm in favor of. I am worried about Philadelphia, the sewer charges. We're totally at their mercy. We have no, our future obligations, and also what we've talked about previously about the sewer situation, especially in a couple of areas. I want to make sure that we're set up for the next 3-4 years, not just for next year. So I appreciate your bringing this to us, and it's something we're going to consider. Thank you.
Anybody else from the board have any comments? All right, I'm just going to finish it up with, as of right now, you have this set at 3 mills. Can you do it at 1? Can you do it at 1.5? I mean, we understand the needs. We get that. Contractually, we have contracts coming back up again. We get all that. But, how lean can you get? We don't also want to impact our residents either. I mean,
yeah, I think as far as staffing levels, we're at the leanest probably we've ever been. And we continue to work under that model, and we'll work in that model. We'll relook at best as we can and try to reduce it down with your further inputs, and try to come back to you if this is not sufficient for tonight, then for a very future close date in the future if we need it.
all right. And Mr. Galdo, if these don't pass, how would this look forward, moving forward next week?
Process-wise, we got to have a lease where it's publicized for at least 20 days, so I would say, since the holiday's coming up, maybe for Tuesday, we would have a special session. We got to wait 20 days. On the 21st day, I believe it's the 26th. Hold on, let me double check that real quick. Bear with me. I'm sorry, yeah. So, the 26th is actually for Tuesday, my bad. And then the 21st day would be the 17th. We would have to meet on either the 17th, and we got a standing meeting on December 18th. So we can either go with the 17th, or you would cancel if you go with the 17th, you would just cancel the 18th, or you just have it on the 18th.
And
Cancel the 11th.
The 11th would not be needed unless something else were to arise.
Okay.
So we would have to establish a special meeting for the 26th, have a follow-up meeting, a lease where it's publicized or advertised to the public on the 17th and or the 18th. So either suffice.
So if the board's not prepared to act, I think the intention would be to recess and reconvene on the 26th at 7:30 PM.
Yes.
So that we'll make that motion if we're going to table.
well, Mr. Dillon, would it be inappropriate to just have me say right now that, if the board allows, the table items 8 through 12? Or should we wait until we get down to those items? Does it make a difference?
You're the chair. You do what you want.
You could table it as you go along. I think that's fine.
All right, then. All right, so if we have no other comments in regards to this, we will then open the floor to public comment. If anybody would like to come up for public comment, please state your name, your address. 3-minute time limit. Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Glenn Stevens. I live at 345 East Myrtle Avenue. It is at that location where a year ago became a victim. My neighbor destroyed my property and stole my property. He did so with the permission of corrupt Mike Italian, that man right there on TV. He did not have the authority, right, Mr. Dillon? Mr. Dillon, sir? He didn't have the authority to allow him to destroy my property, right?
I've given you a written opinion on that.
No, this was your statement. I'm just making sure you're sticking by your statement. That Mike Italian did not have the authority to allow my neighbor to destroy my property, correct? That was almost an exact quote. I can run it for you if you want.
He has no authority to authorize anyone to destroy anything.
Right.
So how many times do you want me to say it?
I want to
How many times? I said it, I'm not saying it again. Don't ask me again.
Thank you very much for answering my question. I'm trying very hard not to yell. I would appreciate if you would do so as well. So, Mr. Chairman, I asked you last week if I could run some video that shows that that's exactly what Mike Italia did, and you told me I couldn't, and you told me I could show it to someone over here. I'd like to show, before that 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the fire and how everybody has to be careful and there's no fires and stuff like that. Well, that makes a lot of sense, but where it really drives home is when you watch on the news and you see the fires. Well, California's always burning, but in New Jersey, there's 4 forest fires. This is powerful imagery. That's what I'd like to bring to the table, powerful imagery. So I'd like you to reconsider and let me play this for the taxpayers so they know the kind of danger they are. That there's a danger from fire, there's a danger from this Mike Italia using authority he doesn't have to destroy people's property.
Mr. Stevens, with all due respect, sir, you've been beating the dead horse over and over.
Not a dead horse, sir.
We've already, it's my time right now, okay? We've been giving you advice. We've spent money to look into this matter for you.
Did we pay for this? Did I pay for this money?
We've done everything we can, okay? At this point now, it's on my turn. At this point, we've told you the only thing we can do to rectify the situation is for you to go out and get a survey. I believe...
This has nothing to do with property lines, sir.
But this is where it all started from, Mr.
No, it has nothing to do with that.
It all started from a property line dispute.
No, it all started with someone destroying my property, me calling the police. The police were told not to come to my aid.
If you won't get a survey done, how do you know it was even your property?
And that's not, those are my bricks. I put them in with these hands.
Okay, so how about...
So I know for a fact those are my...
Could you have put those bricks on your neighbor's property?
What do I care? I just...
Yes or no? Could you have put
They
those
could have been
bricks-
anywhere. Nobody knows.
Right, so
Nobody
they
got a
could have
survey.
been on your neighbor's property. Mr. Peritano, can I bring some, can I put some bricks, a walkway? Can I just, install a cobblestone, if you were my neighbor, I'm going to install a cobblestone curbing, walkway, whatever you want to look at it, and you're going to be fine with it, right? But it's your property, but I'm going to do it anyhow. We're neighbors.
But if you put them there, they're mine.
Well, there we go.
That's not true at all.
So,
When my son drops his bike on a neighbor's property, he's allowed to smash it with a sledgehammer and stake it for his own?
You put in a permanent, it's different.
It is not different, sir. Mike Italia did not have the
Mr.
authority
Stevens,
to give him this permission, sir.
You're at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, so I'm afraid your
You
time
guys
is up.
talked for 10 of it.
We're allowed to talk to.
Can I just get 1 minute of this back? I would like to quote another one of your people,
You
sir.
can have 30 seconds.
I would like to quote another one of your Socrates, sir. The only good is knowledge. That's what I'm trying to bring here, knowledge of corruption and danger. The second half of it is the only evil is ignorance. Mr. Dillon has told you to keep the township ignorant of the danger they're in. There is a real and present danger. I come here seeking knowledge, right?
Mr. Stevens,
And Mr. Italia...
Mr. Stevens, we appreciate your passion, we appreciate your time, but unfortunately, your time is up. Thank you, sir.
See you in 2 weeks.
Anybody else tonight for public comment? Mr. Chrysanthus, the floor is yours, sir. How are you?
I'd like to see what you guys say. Oh, okay. Let me sign in since I want to follow the rules. Frank Chrysanthus, 301 Heights Lane. Listening to the taxes thing, I know you guys are in a rough spot because of the economy, but, not only Kim mentioned the effect of the citizens, and we're getting nickel and dimed, and who knows what tomorrow's going to bring with our economy. If the war in Ukraine expands, things can go up, and it's money's really tight for a lot of people. And I like what Mr. Galdo is saying about going after the receivables that aren't collected. That's great. But I mean, every effort, every stone needs to be looked under to find revenue before you make a tax increase. And that's your duty. You serve us. We don't serve you. And money's tight. These businesses are charging credit card fees now. That never was the case 3 years ago. So I just want to make sure that you take us into account. Truly take us into account. And make the tax increase a last resort. So.
Mr. Chrysanthus, if you don't mind, if I didn't express, I was being more technical during the work session. Of course, we sat on the school board for 9 years.
Yes.
I was lucky to sit for 7 of them without raising taxes. Everybody here that's sitting here is also doing that time. Nobody ever wants to raise taxes. It's the death word in politics is raising taxes. But you've been here all the time. You listen to all the discussions. You're very involved, which we do appreciate.
Yes.
Would it be responsible when we know that we have future liabilities to not prepare the township for it? Is part of the discussion. I don't want you to think that the technical aspects are driving the entire discussion, but it's also for us to be responsible fiduciary representatives of you, the taxpayers. We got to consider the possibilities. We have 2 major contracts coming up. We have the fact that we've been, as Mr. Galdo explained, running the township at a very, very lean state since COVID. A lot of positions were lost, not replaced. People are doing double duty. Nobody wants to raise taxes, but I also don't want to put our residents in a position where we didn't be cautious enough to foresee the unforeseeable, if you may, and then have to go to them consistently when things are tight. Because look, the people have gotten killed over the last 3-4 years. Whether you want to blame it on the current administration or the people that what they charge, it's been the rate of increase has been ridiculous. How can anybody survive?
Well, Nick was mentioning that the last 3.5 years the inflation rate went up 19%. Well, that's true and not true. Certain things have gone up 30%, 40%.
That's true.
And that's a fact. Right. And and the population in the township, has that been relatively stable over the past few years? It's like,
that's why there's no growth in the EIT, which has they've been supporting us.
Mr. Chrysanthus, just to...
Okay, 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll give you another 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Well, then, maybe we need to look at that. Are we passing regulations that inhibit growth in the township? Obviously, more people come in, more taxes, more businesses. Are we restricted, like this amusement tax that we didn't collect for 10 years? That's a hindrance to some people that move in here. And what about, is there more land? I'm not familiar with all the area that's available for more housing. Is that something that the zoning board or whoever's in charge of that restricting people moving in?
As I stated, I personally not in favor of any more high-density housing. I think.
What's considered high-density housing?
Well, you look at all the townhouse developments, you're taking acreages of land where maybe you would have.
Yeah, I just want to know the definition.
8, 10, 12 houses, and you're monetizing it to put 100 properties on there to generate real estate tax.
So instead of getting real estate tax from 8, 10, 12 properties, you're getting real estate tax from 100. That was significant revenue that did come into the township.
I'm sorry, it was significant revenue that did come into the township over time. In my view, though, it's kind of changed the characteristics of why I moved to Feasterville. You know, I think monetary-wise, it was a good move. All right, it's one of the two great reasons why we haven't had a tax increase in 16 years. I don't want to see any more dense development. That's my personal opinion as a board member. I don't know what the rest of the board wants to do. I've heard from plenty of residents, they don't want it. They want us to kind of maintain that single-family home, nice, quiet neighborhood, type of feel. So I know your time's up, and I don't want to extend it, so thank you.
I just want you to consider that because, a lot of people are hurting, and it's just like, we're getting it from everywhere.
Yeah, Frank, we all appreciate your comments.
No, but I mean,
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
For your time.
All right. Anybody else tonight for public comment? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda, 1, A, approval of minutes, November 6, 2024. B, approval of budget minutes, November 20th, 2024. C, approval of accounts payable, November 20th, 2024. And D, approval of certain recurring monthly bills, November 20th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Line item 2, consider authorizing the advertisement of ordinance regarding supervisor compensation. Mr. Dillon, sir, if I could just make a recommendation, I don't think we should act on this tonight. I would like to have some, conversation though, and I know you've researched this a little bit. Due to the fact that Mr. Castle isn't here, I don't think we should, we should act on it though, so.
So I just asked Ms. Bowman what the population was. She told me 19,000.
20,500 and change.
Okay.
Gone up.
So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania sets the salary for supervisors. It's been for $4,125 for as long as I can remember. They just recently raised it and authorized the raising of the salaries in that category to $6,915. The supervisors would have to adopt an ordinance to change the compensation. It would not apply to you, it would apply to future elected officials. So you can't raise your own salary. The next person coming in would get the money, and then over time it would be equalized. So that's what's you need to consider.
So if we do absolutely nothing, everything stays the same?
Correct.
Mr. Dillon, you're saying is that, so next election, anyone who gets re-elected, then they get the new rate?
And whoever's elected at the next...
Whether it's re-election or a new...
Correct.
Okay. That's a 50% increase.
Any comments from the board in regards to that?
I just want to be clear here. So are we required by law to adopt this, or can we just choose to ignore it?
You can ignore it.
All right, so then at a later date,
Weird.
if another board wanted to do it, they would have to adopt it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Roger, Mrs. Bowman?
Okay. Do we have to make a motion or?
No, you don't have to do
we're not.
anything. It's just informing you of
Well,
the...
this says motion.
Can it be less?
Yes,
Yeah, because it does say,
it's the maximum.
Okay.
it says the cap is 69.15.
All right, so I would,
Ignore it.
yeah, I would say we ignore this and we move on to line item 3. Consider authorizing the township manager to sign the stormwater controls and best management practices, operations, and maintenance agreement for 504 East Bristol Road. Mr. Dillon, sir.
So As you approve this project, one of the conditions of the project was a stormwater management agreement. It's prepared by me, reviewed by Mr. Everts, and it's standard practice. I just suggest the motion authorized to be executed by a township manager.
All right, so the motion would read to authorize the township manager to sign the stormwater agreement and best management practices, operations, and maintenance agreement for 504 East Bristol Road. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Peritano, do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Ottinger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to line item number 4, consider awarding the bid for the HVAC at the Dolphin Activity Center. Mr. Mulholland, sir.
Thank you, Board Chair. In coordination with Public Works, we've met with multiple vendors at Dolphin to receive quotes to install the HVAC system in the Activity Center. This would involve 2 units on the roof and 4 units on the inside. We did receive 3 quotes from John's Heating and Cooling, Scott's AC, and Good HVAC, with John's Heating and Cooling being the low bidder at $19,600. So based on the quotes, I'd recommend using John's Heating and Cooling. We did speak with them about being on the same page, all the aspects of the work, and they can get started pretty quickly.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mulholland. So the motion would read to award the bid for the HVAC at the Dolphin Activity Center to John's Heating and Cooling, the lowest bidder, for the amount of $19,600. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Peritano. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Line item number 5, consider awarding the bid for the courts at the Dolphin Municipal Park. Mr. Everett, sir.
Thank you, Board Chair. As you're aware, this is a rebid of the combined project that we opened up in the beginning of October. I got direction to separate the bids out into the tennis courts and the basketball courts and rebid it. So I'm going to start with the tennis courts first. We opened bids on November 14th. We have received a total of 5 bids, with the low bidder being Mike Silcox and Sons Paving, with a cost of, with a base bid of $450,912.30. We have reviewed the contractor's qualifications, and all their submitted documents were in order.
All right, very good. So, Mr. Dillon, I guess I can do the first motion first, or should we have Mr. Everett continue?
No, do the,
First, okay.
It's a separate contract.
All right, so motion number 1 would be to award the bid for the court reconstruction at the Dolphin Municipal Park tennis courts to Mike Silcock and Sons Paving, Inc., the lowest bidder, for the amount of $450,912.30. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Quick question. What about the pickleball courts?
That's included.
Okay, so you just said tennis courts.
So they're existing tennis courts. They're gonna be, yes, yeah.
They're terrible.
How you really feel?
Thank you, Frank. All right, so I apologize. Did we have a motion?
Yes.
We had a motion by Ms. Bowman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Peritano. Any discussion?
I would just like, because we're talking budget as well, if the administration could just add some commentary on how long it's been planning this, and we've been putting money away for it, and how it's going to be paid for. and
Yeah, so
forth.
I mean, with regard to that, that's part of bond dollars. We're lucky to have the bond dollars sitting aside. It's been kind of somewhat of a process, and I'm glad Walt kind of is going to be rewarded with some new capital assets that would help him with programs and kind of revitalize the Dolphin area. So it's a big win for the township, and I think it's a big win for recreation. So I thank you on behalf of Walt.
All right, thank you.
Terrific. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, the second motion for this line item. Mr. Everett, sir, go ahead.
So for continuation, we received 4 bids for the basketball courts at the Dolphin, with the lowest bid being a Sport Court of PA of Montauk, Pennsylvania. Their base bid was $111,079. Excuse me, $111,079.
879.
I got this wrong here.
Let's see.
187.
Yeah. $111,879.
It's easy for you to say.
Too small
We reviewed all the contractor's qualifications, and they submitted all the required documents. I would like to note that the first time we submitted, that we prepared the bids, we received one bid, and the total cost was $746,820. So separating them out, the township saved approximately $184,028.70.
Mr. Chrysanthus, did you hear that?
Yes.
Right? So we do try to save money wherever we can.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I was just making a comment that in this time of uncertainty, we need to make extra effort to conserve our money.
Absolutely. All right, so motion 2 would read to award the bid for the court reconstruction at the Dauphin Municipal Park basketball courts to Sport Court of PA, the lowest bidder, for the amount of $111,879.00. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ottinger. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to line item 6, consider authorizing payment number 1 to James Morrissey, Inc. for the 2024 road paving program. Mr. Everett, sir, back at you again.
Thank you, Board Chair. Let's see if I can do this a little better this time. So we're asking for payment request number 1 final to JDM for the 2024 road program for a cost of $575,631.50. Just some background on this. After it was awarded last time, there was some minor changes to the road program due to some issues that were unwarranted. So we switched out some roads. Summit Avenue and Manor Lane were removed, and Ponderosa Street, half of it was included, along with Sterner Mill Road. Actually, that was reversed. That was right. Sterner Mill Road and Ponderosa Street was paved. So the original contract was $579,142.90, so we came in slightly below that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Everett, for that. Thank you. So the motion would read to authorize payment number 1 to James Morrissey, Inc. for the 2024 road paving program in the amount of $575,631.50, and to authorize the township manager to sign documents. Do we have a motion?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Paratano. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to line item 7. Consider adoption of Resolution 2024-40, authorizing the library's local share grant application. Mr. Gallo, sir, I know Ms. Mason was here. She did a terrific presentation. Maybe you might just want to throw a couple of the highlights out.
Unfortunately, I think I was in the men's room, excuse me. So,
Well, then, I can-
go ahead, if you want to. I mean, the request is for about, I think it was a combination between engineering and the actual 3 air-conditioned HVAC units, was about $142,000. So hopefully with the support of Representative Hogan and Representative Farry, we'll get the support and they could get a win there. Your appropriations and your revenue would be built into their library capital reserve fund for it to handle this if it comes to fruition.
Okay. And, you did a terrific job, Mr. Gallo.
All right, Board Chair.
On top of that, I just...
And this is for us to authorize their ability to file the grant.
Yes, absolutely.
No,
Yep.
Seems like it's a no-brainer,
Yep.
All right, so the motion would read to adopt Resolution 2024-40, authorizing the library's local share grant application. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Paratano. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. All righty, as we move on, we have line item 8 through 12 in front of us.
Yes, we've had prior discussion about this. I suggest that we table these matters, and at the end of the meeting, we'll make a motion to recess and reconvene at a time certain.
All right. I would also agree with our solicitor. I guess the board doesn't have any issues with that. All right, then we will move on to line item 13. Consider approval and execution of a written decision on 1641 Loretto Avenue. Mr. Dillon, sir.
Yes, we had a hearing at our last meeting on a conditional use application. You turned down the request for the conditional use required by the municipality's planning code to issue a decision within 45 days. I prepared that decision and would ask for the motion to approve the decision and authorize the execution by the board members.
All right, then, Mr. Dillon, so the motion would read to approve the written decision on 1641 Loretto Avenue. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. I had a feeling you would, Mr. Roger. All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. All right, line item 14. Consider approval of bid for tree removal on township property. Mr. Coppins, sir.
Thank you, Board Chair. We're looking to get the woods next to the township building cleaned up. There's a lot of dead trees that need to be taken out, and 3 bigger trees that need to be taken down. There'll be 5 to 7 stumps that need to be grinded, and the vendor will also be pruning out all the trees on the property. We had 4 quotes. First quote was for $48,849. Second quote was for $24,980. The third quote was for $18,000, and the lowest bidder was $15,600, all the above tree service.
Well, I tell you what, Mr. Coppins, what a difference from the highest to the lowest. I mean, that's amazing.
So I suggest we go with the $48,000 bid.
I just... And
We're spending money.
and not that I know,
That's half of what
you know,
that's cost.
just for the record, I do not know all of the above, but I do see them around. They seem like they're a very active tree service in our area.
Yes.
So you're,
They do good work.
okay, great. All right, then, so the motion would read to award the bid for tree removal on township property to all of the above, the lowest bidder for the amount of $15,600. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ottinger. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Peritano. Any discussion?
Just real quick, Rich, do you remember what the previous low bid was? Before we rebid it?
I believe it was $20,000. I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't believe I had that one, but I believe it was $20,000.
So we saved a little bit more, so that's great. Thank you for taking the extra effort to
welcome,
follow up
thank
on
you.
those leads.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
When we talked about this a couple meetings ago about parking over there, you ever have any luck to find out if we can make the lot any bigger or anything?
No, not yet.
All right. Any other discussion?
To-do list, Bill.
All right. At this point, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to line item 15, consider authorizing the township manager to sign stormwater controls and best management practices, operations, and maintenance agreement for 326 Hazel Avenue.
Same explanation as number 3.
All right, then. And the motion would read to authorize the township manager to sign stormwater controls and best management practices, operations, and maintenance agreement for 326 Hazel Avenue. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peritano. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Dillon, I don't know if we should go to manager's report first, or since we had tabled line item 8 through 12, I know we have to,
I think as part of the adjournment, the motion will be to adjourn and we'll recess the seat. We'll do that at the end.
okay, all right, very good then. All right, then we'll move on to manager's report. Mr. Galdo, sir.
Thank you, Board Chair. Again, just reminding the township residents with regard to the burn ban, again, due to the conditions, the drought conditions, hopefully that is relieved over the next couple days or next week. This includes, but not limited to, recreational fire pits, burning of yard waste, fireworks, discarding of cigarette butts, or anything else that could be combustible in nature. The failure to comply may result in fines starting at $100 and up to $1,000 per instance. We would thank you for cooperating with regard to the burn ban and continuing. It may get reset for an additional 15 days, but it depends on the weather events within the township. The next item we have is the Red Cross Blood Drive. That's December 4th at the Sarah Mitchell Community Center. That runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please call to register for your appointment at 1-800-733-2767. And lastly, yard waste collection for the year would be ending on Thursday, December 12th, and from December 13th through the end of March, yard waste would be picked up the same day as your trash collection. That's all I have, Board Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gallo. Supervisor comments. Mrs. Bowman, ladies first.
I just want to wish everybody a happy and healthy Thanksgiving if we don't see you, and enjoy your holiday. Please adhere to the burn ban. The county commissioners did extend that burn ban for an additional 15 days today, but they could change that depending on the rain that happens this weekend. So be safe.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Bowman. Mr. Peritano, sir.
I just want to thank everybody that came out and spoke this evening. I want you to understand that we do hear you, and we take everything into consideration before we make a decision. I want to thank the staff for working hard. I know we gave you a little bit more work to do before we come to a resolution on this issue. I appreciate everything you're putting into it. To our Streets Department, and Public Works, rather, and Park and Rec, I appreciate the savings that you brought by going the extra mile. I know we instructed you to do it, but it still takes a lot of work to keep going out there and getting these vendors to put the bids through and getting them willing to re-quote it. We saved a substantial amount of money on work we were already previously committed to, so it's a benefit for everybody. And I just want to remind everybody, it's getting dark real early now, and we're going to be like this through to January. Just please be careful when you're out there. You'll get there eventually. You don't have to try and squeeze a 20-minute trip into a 19-minute trip. So just be careful, take your time, be safe, and have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peritano. Mr. Ottinger, sir.
I wanted to say, one of our friends, close friends, Natalie's husband, Michael, has been having some problems in the hospital, and everybody should really think about him and hope for the best. Other than that, the other night we had the major fire in the township, and kudos to them for putting a quick knock on the fire and not causing it to spread throughout the whole development. And I guess I'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ottinger. All right. And as for myself, I just want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family. Don't eat too much. I want to wish all of our hunters here in Lower Southampton that will be going out into the woods after Thanksgiving a joyous time out. Good luck. Hopefully you have a good harvest. And at this time,
Yes, we'd like a motion to recess tonight's meeting and reconvene on Tuesday, November 26th at 7:30 p.m. to consider the budget items 8 through 12 and any other items that might arise in the interim.
all right, thank you very much, Mr. Dillon. So do we have a motion as stated by our solicitor, Mr. Dillon?
Can we change that to 7, or no?
You can
There won't be no executive session or anything for that, right?
Yeah, you can change it to wherever you want.
I'm okay with that.
Is that okay with you? All right, so we will change the time, Mr. Galdo, to 7 o'clock that night. All right, so do we have a motion as stated by our solicitor?
I will make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pertona. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Ottinger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.